Good morning, Professor Jomo. We would like to talk to you about what's happening in the world today in terms of food prices, fuel prices, and also a little bit on the financial side, given your position within the UN. First of all, on fuel, which is the big topic on everybody's mind. They've been talked that fuel prices is basically because of an increase of demand coming from countries like China and India, and some talk about it being pushed up by speculation. To what extent these two factors are actually pushing up the price of oil?
Generally, growth requires energy, and the world economy has been growing slightly faster in recent years, and but it's not as if the world economy as a whole is growing so much faster. And so I think nobody can seriously say that it is due to simple demand factors. Some people also take the view there is a so-called theory, which is a peak oil hypothesis, that we have basically reached the peak of supply, and then now supply is basically constrained from now on, because we know all the reserves available and so on and so forth. And this is also another explanation which is which is being offered for the current situation. There is, of course, some basis for any kind of explanation. Otherwise, the explanation would not come up in the first place. But I don't think anybody seriously attributes it to any single factor. There are a number of factors which are contributing. Two other factors which I emphasize are: one, the developments since the beginning of the decade, particularly the invasion of Iraq, which was the second largest producer of oil in the world, and the consequences of that. Now, it is true that there have been other sources which have become much more significant, which should have compensated for the decline of Iraqi oil. For example, Russia is now much more significant. There are new sources in Africa and so on and so forth. But nonetheless, the consequence of the war, the consequence of the specific supply factors in the case of Iraq are often very much emphasized. Yet another element which gets a lot of mention is the whole question of how should I put it, the element of speculation. It is noted that oil is only one of the prices which have gone up. Generally speaking, primary commodity prices seem to have risen over the last few years with increased growth, but especially mineral prices. So there's a sense that there are very serious supply constraints. So other metals, for example, other metal prices have also gone up quite a bit during the recent period. But this is less true of agricultural commodities, with the possible exception of some food prices. But there's also, in the recent months, since the financial crisis began in August last year, there has been what is called a flight to security. Sure. People are no longer holding many of the old financial assets. People are beginning to doubt those financial assets are very secure, and so on and so forth. So they have moved to things which are based on material goods, and primary commodities, especially metals, are especially attractive in this regard, and other minerals, including oil.
So basically the shift of capital into these areas creates a bit of speculation and pricing rises there. Right. So do you see this trend continuing for the next year or so, or do you, as we'll say, that it's gonna fall back down?
If we look at the 20th century, there was actually a downward trend in terms of primary commodity prices. Sure. Generally. Of course, what happened in the 20th century doesn't necessarily mean that the 21st century is going to be the same. But what we also see is that when primary commodity prices have gone up, they have never stayed up for a very extended period of time. If we think, for example, of the previous times when oil prices went up, 73, 74, when Sheikh Yamani organized OPEC and reduced supply and in ways which allowed prices to go up very rapidly. And then again in 78, 79, This time it was less well organized, but nonetheless it had that effect. But in both instances, they were temporary blips. And if you think of it, the inflation and so on and so forth, the recent increases are not as great as might seem when you compare with the actual impact of 73, 74 and 78, 79. Now, these are the only 3 serious episodes of oil price increases. So I would see these periods as exceptional rather than the rule. There's a tendency to generalize, very much from what short-term trends into saying that these are very long. But of course, the fact that it's short-term doesn't mean that it doesn't have very serious consequences. And King Abdullah's agreement with UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon a few days ago to increase production basically means a breaking of the ranks within OPEC. There's also been the withdrawal of Indonesia from OPEC. So the effectiveness of OPEC as a cartel in terms of trying to influence prices is going to be circumscribed by this weakening of OPEC.
So you think that OPEC has played a key role in pushing up the prices currently?
OPEC is one of the few producer cartels which actually
have an impact.
work. There are of course many attempts at producer cartels. Even for example, the Thai Prime Minister announced that he's going to have a rice cartel. But he identified 5 countries, and only 2 of them are rice exporters: Thailand itself and Vietnam. So I don't know what kind of cartel that is going to be, because the other 3 are net rice importers. But and of course Malaysia has been trying very hard to organize a rubber producers cartel for decades without that much success and that much impact. So it's the history of cartels is actually, but energy of course is a particularly special commodity because it's absolutely essential for most other economic activity, and so it plays that kind of a role.